repeat yourself, but with a difference. The last technique we offer for connecting the parts of your text involves repeating yourself, but with a difference, which basically means saying the same thing you've just said, but in a slightly different way that avoids sounding monotonous. To effectively connect the parts of your argument and keep it moving forward, be careful not to leap from one idea to a different idea or introduce new ideas cold. Instead, try to build bridges between your ideas by echoing what you've just said while simultaneously moving your text into new territory. Several of the connecting devices discussed in this chapter are ways of repeating yourself in this special way. Key terms, pointing terms, and even many transitions can be used in a way that not only brings something forward from the previous sentence, but in some way alters it. And Douglas, for instance, uses the key term ambivalent to echo her earlier reference to schizophrenics. She is repeating herself with a difference, repeating the same concept, but with a different word that adds new associations. In addition, when you use transition phrases like in other words and to put it another way, you repeat yourself with a difference, since these phrases help you restate early claims but in a different register. When you open a sentence with in other words, you are basically telling your readers that in case they didn't fully understand what you meant in the last sentence, you are now coming at it again from a slightly different angle, or that since you're presenting a very important idea, you're not going to skip over it quickly, but will explore it further to make sure your readers grasp all its aspects. We wouldn't even go so far as to suggest that after your first sentence, almost every sentence you write should refer back to previous statements in some way, whether you are writing a furthermore comment that adds to what you have just said or for example statement that illustrates it. Each sentence should echo at least one element of the previous sentence in some discernible way, even when your text changes direction and requires transitions like in contrast, however, or but. You still need to mark that shift by linking the sentence to the one just before it, as in the following example. Cheyenne loved basketball. Nevertheless, she feared her height would put her at a disadvantage. These sentences work because even though the second sentence changes course and qualifies the first, it still echoes key concepts from the first. Not only does she echo Cheyenne, since both refer to the same person, but feared echoes loved, by establishing the contrast mandated by the term nevertheless. Nevertheless, then, is not an excuse for changing subjects radically. It too requires repetition to help readers shift gears with you and follow your train of thought. Repetition, in short, is a central means by which you can move from point A to point B in a text. To introduce one last analogy, think of the way experienced rock climbers move up a steep slope. Instead of jumping or lurching from one handhold to the next, good climbers get a secure handhold on the position they have established before reaching for the next ledge. The same thing applies to writing. To move smoothly from point to point in your argument, you need to firmly ground what you say and what you've already said. In this way, your writing remains focused while simultaneously moving forward. But hold on, you may be thinking. Isn't repetition precisely what sophisticated writers should avoid? On the grounds that it will make their writing sound simplistic, as if they are belaboring the obvious? Yes and no. On the one hand, writers certainly can run into trouble if they merely repeat themselves and nothing more. On the other hand, repetition is key to creating continuity in writing. It is impossible to stay on track in a piece of writing if you don't repeat your points throughout the length of the text. Furthermore, writers would never make an impact on readers if they didn't repeat their main points often enough to reinforce those points and make them stand out above subordinate points. The trick, therefore, is not to avoid repeating yourself, but to repeat yourself in varied and interesting enough ways that you advance your argument without sounding tedious.